The glass champagne flute slipped from my fingers as my mother's words registered. It shattered against the hardwood floor, crystalline shards exploding outward like my disbelief. "Natalie, this is your chance to show how much you love your sister," Mom continued, her smile sharp and expectant. "I think you should give your new apartment to Olivia and Kenneth." Time slowed as I looked around my parents' dining room. The relatives leaned forward, vulture-like, awaiting my response. My father nodded in agreement with Mom's suggestion. Olivia finally met my eyes, a mix of embarrassment and entitlement on her face. This wasn't a spontaneous idea. This was an ambush, orchestrated down to the chocolate cake I'd been asked to bring, now sitting untouched in the center of the table. The apartment they wanted me to give away had cost $300,000, every penny I'd saved working 60-hour weeks for 8 years, plus my grandmother's modest inheritance that I'd received when she passed away 2 years ago, the apartment I had purchased just 2 weeks ago, my apartment. My name is Natalie. I'm 30 and a forensic accountant. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes family ledgers need to be balanced. 3 days earlier, my mother had called with that artificial casual tone she uses when she's plotting something. "Natalie, dear, I need you to come over Saturday for a family meeting," she'd said. "Family meeting? What's going on?" I'd asked, pausing my renovation work. I'd been scraping hideous floral wallpaper from my new apartment walls, YouTube tutorials playing in the background. "Oh, it's a surprise. Just make sure you're here by 4 and bring one of those chocolate cakes from that bakery near your new place." I should have recognized the warning signs, the forced lightness in her voice, the insistence on bringing dessert I'd end up wearing, the surprise that required my entire extended family to witness. Instead, I'd shrugged and returned to my wallpaper removal, blisters forming on my palms from hours of scraping. Each blister represented another small payment toward making this space truly mine. Throughout my life, the pattern had been unmistakable. When my sister Olivia and I both needed new clothes for school, she got designer labels while I got clearance rack items. For her 16th birthday, my parents threw a massive party with a professional DJ. For mine, Mom baked a cake and invited 2 relatives. When we both had recitals on the same weekend, guess which one my parents attended? My parents' justification never varied. "Olivia needs more help." As if my debate tournaments and library volunteering didn't count compared to her cheerleading. Now, Olivia was 27, pregnant, and engaged to Kenneth. And suddenly, my apartment, the one thing I'd achieved completely on my own, was supposed to become her gift. "You can go back to renting," Mom added casually, as if she wasn't asking me to surrender my $300,000 apartment. "You don't need all that space just for yourself." "That's a wonderful idea," Aunt Kimberly chimed in. "Family should always come first." Several other relatives nodded in agreement. My throat constricted as I realized how many people had been consulted about my property before me. "You're not serious," I finally managed to say. "Of course I am," Mom replied, her voice hardening. "Your sister needs it more than you do." I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Let me get this straight. You want me to give Olivia my apartment, the apartment I worked 60-hour weeks for years to afford, the apartment I just bought with money I inherited from Grandma and saved for 8 years. You want me to just hand it over because Olivia got pregnant?" "Natalie," Dad cut in, his tone warning me to back down. "Don't be selfish." "Selfish?" I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "I worked for that apartment, every single penny. No one helped me." "But Olivia needs," Mom started. "No," I interrupted. "Absolutely not. I will not give my apartment to Olivia. It's mine. I earned it." Olivia burst into tears, her hand dramatically pressed against her still flat stomach. Kenneth glared at me as if I'd kicked a puppy. "How can you be so heartless?" Mom demanded, her face flushing with anger. "Your own sister." "How can you ask me to give away everything I've worked for?" I countered. "Why doesn't Olivia work and save like I did?" The relatives began whispering among themselves. I heard phrases like, "so materialistic," and "always was the difficult one." "You've always been like this," Mom spat, "always thinking only of yourself." "I'm not giving her my apartment," I repeated firmly. "End of discussion." What happened next plays in my mind in slow motion whenever I doubt my decision. Mom grabbed the chocolate cake I'd brought, the one sitting untouched in the center of the table, and hurled it at me with surprising force. It hit me square in the face, cream and chocolate splattering across my cheeks and dripping down my neck onto my blouse. The room fell silent. I slowly wiped the frosting from my eyes, letting globs of cake fall to the floor. Dad and Olivia didn't look shocked. They looked pleased, as if I'd finally gotten what I deserved. Without a word, I grabbed my purse and keys and walked out, cake still smeared across my clothes and hair. Behind me, I could hear the shouts beginning. "Selfish bitch!" That was Mom's voice. "We should disown you," Dad called after me. "How could you do this to me?" Olivia wailed. I got into my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. Somehow I managed to drive home, chocolate frosting drying on my skin. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text messages and calls flooded in. "You're being ridiculous. Just give her the apartment." "I can't believe how selfish you're being right now, after everything we've done for you. Your pregnant sister needs a home." I turned off my phone and tossed it aside. What had they ever done for me? As I sat on my second-hand couch, trying to process what had happened, an important memory surfaced. The house we'd just been sitting in, my grandmother's house, she had left to Olivia and me equally in her will when she passed away 2 years ago. We'd let our parents live there out of kindness, never asking for anything in return. I was half owner of that house, just as Olivia was. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I woke up with clarity I hadn't felt in years. I searched through my filing cabinet until I found the folder labeled Grandma's Will. Inside was the document confirming what I already knew. Olivia and I each owned 50% of our parents' house. They were living there by our goodwill, not by legal right. I was about to call a lawyer when my phone pinged. It was a notification from Facebook. My mother had tagged me in a post. With a growing sense of dread, I opened the app and nearly dropped my phone when I saw what she'd written. It breaks my heart to share this, but sometimes family disappoints you in the worst ways. Yesterday, my daughter Natalie refused to help her pregnant sister Olivia when she needed it most. Despite having the means to help, Natalie chose selfishness over family. As a mother, I've never been more heartbroken. Please pray for Natalie to find compassion in her heart. The post had dozens of comments, mostly from relatives and family friends. I was there. Natalie was horrifically cruel to poor Olivia. Some people just don't understand what family means. Keeping an apartment all to herself when her sister is pregnant? Shameful? Not a single person mentioned how my mother had thrown a cake at my face. Not one person questioned why I should give up my apartment that I'd worked so hard for. I scrolled through the comments, each one like a knife to my chest. My mother was actively liking and responding to the most vicious ones. She was orchestrating a public shaming campaign against me. That was the moment something broke inside me. The last thread of familial loyalty snapped. I picked up my phone and called the first lawyer that came up when I searched for real estate attorney in my area. "Richardson Law Office," a receptionist answered. "I need to speak with a lawyer about property rights," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. 2 hours later, I was sitting across from Justin Richardson, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s who listened carefully as I explained my situation. "Let me get this straight," he said when I finished. "You and your sister inherited a house from your grandmother. You've allowed your parents to live there rent-free. Now, after they demanded you give your apartment to your sister and publicly humiliated you when you refused, you want to know your options regarding the house." "Yes," I confirmed. "I don't want to be vindictive, but they've shown me no respect or consideration. I need to know what my rights are." Justin reviewed the will and nodded. "It's clear-cut. You and your sister each own 50% of the property. You can, at any time, request that the house be sold and the proceeds split between you and your sister." "What's the process?" I asked. I'll draft a formal notice stating your intention to sell your half of the property. Your sister can either buy you out at fair market value, or the entire house will need to be sold and the proceeds divided. Your parents legally have no say in the matter." I took a deep breath. "Do it." For the next few days, I focused on my apartment renovations. I'd finished painting the living room and moved on to ripping out the old carpet. Physical labor helped keep my mind off the mess with my family. I blocked their numbers temporarily. I needed space to think clearly without their constant harassment. 5 days after my meeting with Justin, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole to see my parents, Olivia and Kenneth, standing in the hallway. I didn't open the door. "Natalie, we know you're in there," my mother shouted. "Open this door right now." "We need to talk about this ridiculous letter," my father added, his voice booming. I remained silent, pressing record on my phone's voice memo app. "You ungrateful bastard," my mother screamed. "After everything we've done for you—" "You're trying to make your pregnant sister homeless," Olivia cried. "This is low, even for you," Kenneth added. I recorded every word, every threat, every insult they hurled at my door for nearly 15 minutes before they finally gave up and left. The next day, I sent the recording to Justin, who called me immediately. "This is harassment," he said firmly. "We can file for a restraining order if necessary, but more importantly, their behavior only strengthens our position. They've clearly demonstrated hostility toward you." A week later, Justin called with news. "Your parents' lawyer reached out. They want to mediate." The mediation was set for the following Monday at Justin's office. I arrived early, dressed in my most professional outfit, a navy blue pantsuit I usually reserved for big client meetings. Justin greeted me with a confident smile. "Remember, you have every legal right to do this. Don't let them make you feel guilty." My parents, Olivia and Kenneth, arrived with their lawyer. My mother glared at me with naked contempt. "Traitor," she hissed as she passed me. The lawyer spoke first, laying out the facts of the case. My parents' lawyer argued that selling the house would cause undue hardship to my family. Justin countered by presenting the recorded harassment and social media posts as evidence of their treatment of me. After nearly 2 hours of back and forth, the lawyers conferred privately before returning with a proposed settlement. The house would be sold and the proceeds divided equally between Olivia and me, as per our grandmother's will. My mother burst into tears when she heard this. "Please, Natalie," she sobbed, suddenly switching tactics. "We're your family. How can you do this to us? I'm sorry about the cake. I lost my temper." I looked at her tear-streaked face, remembering all the times I'd forgiven her treatment of me, all the times I'd accepted being second best to Olivia. I thought about the public humiliation she'd orchestrated, the harassment at my door, the demands that I give up everything I'd worked for. "The house will be sold," I said quietly. "That's final." Justin nodded and began drafting the settlement agreement. As we waited, I could feel my family's hatred radiating toward me. I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself. 2 months passed in a blur of legal paperwork and real estate viewings. The house sold faster than expected. The market was hot and the property was in a desirable neighborhood. After closing costs and fees, Olivia and I each received just over $175,000. I never spoke directly to my family during this time. All communication went through our lawyers. I learned from Justin that my parents were furious, but ultimately powerless to stop the sale. They'd been living in a property they didn't own for years, contributing nothing toward its upkeep beyond basic maintenance. "What are they going to do now?" I asked Justin during our final meeting. "Your sister has decided to use her share as a down payment on a new house," he explained. "Your parents will be moving in with her and Kenneth. They've secured a mortgage for the remainder, about $350,000 based on Kenneth's income and your sister's part-time work." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt guilty. I'd effectively forced my parents from their home. But another part, the part that remembered the cake in my face and the public shaming, felt vindicated. "What about you?" Justin asked. "Any plans for your share?" Investment portfolio, I replied. I've been working with a financial advisor to set up a diversified mix of stocks, bonds, and real estate investment trusts. Smart move, he said approvingly. Well, unless there's anything else, I think our business is concluded. I shook his hand. Thank you for everything. As I walked out of his office, I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd set down a heavy load I'd been carrying for years, the weight of always being the responsible one, the one who gave in, the one who sacrificed. Back at my apartment, I surveyed what I'd accomplished. The renovation was nearly complete. I'd replaced the carpet with hardwood floors, painted every room, updated the kitchen with new appliances, and installed modern light fixtures throughout. It looked nothing like the place I'd bought 3 months ago. It was truly mine now, in every sense. My phone rang, a friend from work. Hey, Sarah, I answered. Natalie, how are you doing? She sounded concerned. We'd talked briefly about the family drama when I'd shown up to work with red eyes after the cake incident. I'm okay, actually. I realized as I said it that it was true. The house sale is final. The money's in my account. And your family? I sighed. That part's still a mess. I haven't spoken to any of them. I hear things through mutual friends like Jessica, who's still close with Olivia. What kind of things? Olivia's wedding was last month. Small ceremony, just close family. I paused. I wasn't invited, obviously. I'm sorry, Natalie. Don't be. I wouldn't have gone anyway. I meant it. She's due to give birth next week, apparently a boy. And you're really okay with all of this? Not seeing your nephew? I thought about it for a moment. He'll grow up thinking I'm the villain in some family drama. They'll tell him his awful Aunt Natalie wouldn't give them her apartment and made them sell their house. They won't mention how they treated me my entire life. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Families are complicated. That's putting it mildly, I laughed without humor. The thing is, Sarah, I don't think they ever really saw me as family. I was just useful, someone to sacrifice when needed. Do you think you'll ever reconcile? Not unless they acknowledge what they did and genuinely apologize. I knew it would never happen. My parents had spent their entire lives favoring Olivia. They wouldn't suddenly develop self-awareness in their 60s. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked out onto my small balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be estranged from my entire family, I might have been devastated. But now, I felt strangely at peace. My phone pinged with a text from Jessica, the mutual friend who kept me updated. Olivia had the baby, 7 pounds 6 ounces, everyone's doing fine. I stared at the message, waiting for some emotional response, sadness, anger, regret, but all I felt was a distant acknowledgement, like hearing news about an acquaintance rather than my own sister. I knew they were all living together now, Olivia, Kenneth, the baby, and my parents, in the house they'd bought with Olivia's share of the money and a 30-year mortgage they'd be paying well into their retirement years. But I couldn't find it in me to feel sorry for them. They'd shown me clearly where I stood in their eyes, not as a daughter or sister or aunt, but as a resource to be exploited. My apartment was quiet as I moved back inside. Some might call it lonely, but I called it peaceful. The walls I'd painted myself, the floors I'd installed with my own hands, every inch of this place represented my independence, my refusal to be used. On my bookshelf sat a small box containing the only family photos I'd kept. Pictures of my grandmother and me. She'd always treated Olivia and me equally. Perhaps she'd seen what was happening, how my parents favored my sister, and tried in her own way to balance the scales by leaving us equal shares of her house. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered, touching the box lightly. As for the rest of my family, I had no desire to reach out. The ball was firmly in their court, and I suspected it would stay there forever. I was done making sacrifices for people who wouldn't do the same for me. I'd always thought family was about unconditional love and support. Now I understood that real family, whether related by blood or not, would never ask you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. They would never throw cake in your face when you refused to burn. My phone remained silent. No calls from my mother begging forgiveness. No texts from my father acknowledging his favoritism. No message from Olivia thanking me for the years I'd spent in her shadow, never complaining. And that was fine. I had my apartment, my investments, my career, and friends who actually cared about me. I had a life I built myself, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. Some might call what I did revenge. I call it long overdue accounting.